this video, I'm going to show you how I draw a coffee bean and paint it in watercolor. I also use a little bit of waterproof ink. So if you're interested in seeing how I do that, then keep on watching. So I'm starting off with a pencil drawing in my sketchbook. I think in previous videos it kind of speed through the drawing portion sometimes because I'm always more excited about the painting portion myself, but I thought I would kind of show you more of this step this time. So I'm just kind of starting out with one half of the bean's shape and then drawing in the areas where the bean splits and then adding in the other half. And I think the best way to go about drawing is just starting off with the bigger basic shapes and then adding in the detail as you go. Now I'm going over the drawing with waterproof ink. I'm using the Pigma Micron pen in, I think, 0.25 millimeters. Now I'm mixing up some colors for the coffee bean, and I always use more than just one tone of the main color. So I'm, as you can see here, mixing up quite a few different shades of brown. Some are reddish, some are more of a darker brown gray tone. So it's great to just have a look and try and use your x-ray vision when you're looking at a reference photo to see what underlying colors are in the photo. And in this case I'm actually adding some purple into my browns because I think that will look good for the dimension of this illustration. Now I'm starting the painting process, and I started this off with wet in wet. So that means I wet the paper with clean water and then I drop in the watercolor. If you want to see more detailed examples of this, I have some full-length classes on Skillshare.com, and you can find a link to my profile and classes in the description of this video below, and I go through things step by step, real time, in much more detail. Now I'm adding in some darker spots to the coffee bean. I can see in the picture that I'm working from that these are kind of almost like blemishes on the bean, so I'm going to add those in early on so I can get the contrast levels right. Now I'm laying the water in on the other side of the bean, so I'm just using clean, clear tap water to lay this in, making it nice and smooth, making sure I've got the water right in the lines, and then I will be ready to drop in the first layer of paint. I'm adding some detail on the edge and some darker spots on the other side as well. Just adding the first layers of color into the center of the bean now. I've started with a really light straw-like color and adding in a bit more definition with a darker brown. I'm starting to work on wet on dry painting, meaning I'm taking fairly wet paint and dropping it onto dry paper and using my brush to make some texture. And then I will wet my brush and soften out the marks a little. Now I'm adding more color to the other side of the bean, and I'm really trying to get those edges where the bean kind of rolls into the center there nice and dark to create some depth. And now I've started using a little bit of a redder toned brown just to create more interest. And I'm going over the dark little cracked areas with a smaller brush. Now I'm using my tiniest brush to make even more detail in the center of the bean. When I'm getting closer to being finished painting, I'm making lots of little wet on dry marks, and then I'm using a larger, softer brush that's damp to soften them out quickly after I make them so that they don't set in too quickly. Now I'm going around and making sure I get the darkest areas of the bean nice and dark to create more contrast. And now I'm just defining the edge more, but I'm leaving a little bit of space against the extreme edge of the bean, and this is to indicate reflected light. So again, I'm using my, I think it's a triple or double zero brush just to make tiny little dark marks to create more contrast in final detail. I'm using a larger, softer brush with a very thin watery wash of brown to kind of go over the bean and unify the color and texture, but making sure that I keep the lightest highlights clear from pigment. And now I'm just tidying up the edges a little bit. Now just adding in the last tiny little details. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up, and I will post another new video next Saturday. If you enjoyed this video and you would like to see more, please subscribe to my channel and make sure you check me out on Instagram as well at Laura Ashton Artist, and you can visit my online store and website at lauraashton.ca. Thanks, guys.